Welcome back to Take Two, presented by LeftRightPolitics.com, a discussion of the times and current events. I'm joined as always by Adam Matlack and Mike Pomerantz. Today, I'd like your take on today's 6-3 Supreme Court decision affecting LGBT workplace rights.
Yeah, this is this is a big day. It's initially surprising to me when I'm looking at my Twitter feed about how excited the left is, Democratic Twitter. And I guess the more I think about the decision, the more I see why. Again, this is one of those things where it's like, I feel like the decision is catching up, where there's so much societal acceptance. There's been such a clear move, beginning with gay marriage. Or I should say continuing with gay marriage. But that decision in the past several years, I think, paves the way for this. It boggles my mind that these protections did not exist. It boggles my mind that because someone is trans, they can be fired for no other reason. We talked about this before. I will listen to bona fide issues regarding the employee's ability to do the job, and if there's something that makes it impossible, and I know there's going to be subterfuge, there's going to be excuses, and we're going to have to sift through that. Every case is going to be different, and that's why the civil rights lawyers are going to have their hands full. But the basic understanding, I just can't believe it didn't exist already. That before today, if I had an employee and I was like, this person's trans, kind of makes me uncomfortable, I don't really like that person being around, gone. There was no protection. So now there is, and that is, it's been extended to the entire LGBTQ community, but I think the impact on trans rights is so notable that I wanted to highlight that to get us started.
I mean, it's interesting to me because as Gorsuch, is at the center of this, in my opinion, based off what I've read, and I've not read his entire ascension, but like, it's a really interesting situation because I think a lot of people for a long time have talked about the conservative takeover of the court and how it was going to ruin everything. And how Gorsuch was going to come in and ride a high horse and just, make everything illegal and destroy all gay people, with his laser beam eyes. I think it's an interesting situation because I'm not surprised at the vote. I'm not surprised that Gorsuch took the way it was. I'm definitely not surprised at Roberts or Alito's or anyone else's actually take. I think Kavanaugh was close. I haven't read his dissent, but I think the bigger thing to me is the response is that, oh my gosh, maybe the sky isn't falling. Oh my gosh, maybe some of these people who were put up aren't the worst evil of mankind, and maybe there is more decency and reality behind what some of these people are saying. And I think it's important to highlight that when in today's situation where it's just always at odds and we can't agree on anything, and we're just all the other side's evil, the other side's Nazis, the other side wants to take everything away. Well, I mean, let's be real here. It was 6-3. It wasn't a 5. It wasn't a teeter decision. I'm not saying it was a blowout here or anything. And I get that some people have disagreements, and I read some of Alito's takes, and I can appreciate the concern because I have concern about getting away from textualism and going towards legislation. I don't want the bench to legislate. I don't want legislation coming from the bench. And I'm sure our registered lawyer here is going to let me hear about it. But for me, it's all in all positive because we do live in a society that demands, for whatever reason, protections from other people, employers. I don't know why we would need that other than the fact that everybody's snowflakes, like my friend Mikey here says. But the reality for me is that it's an all in all, this is a big win for commonality. It's not, I'm okay. I don't think this has happened. I don't think there's a tremendous amount of workplace discrimination going on because it is not inducive to capitalism to fire someone who is a net positive for your business. This is something I know to be a fact. And so you might have a grudge. Guess what? You're probably a bad business owner, and you probably have a bad business. I probably didn't want to work there in the first place. Now, if you want protections to work for crappy people, hey, I guess this is America. That's what you get. I personally wouldn't want to work for crappy people. And if they didn't want me around, I certainly wouldn't want to be there. But here we are. We have a lot of commonality and a lot more than we want to admit, or a lot more than that we're highlighting all the time. And I think that's a really good thing.
40 million people out of work. And I'm going to start being choosy about which job I take, because this employer who has otherwise offered me a job, but if they find out I'm trans, they're going to fire me because they are very different. I'm not going to take that job, even though I desperately need a job. I don't know if that's really how it works. But before I take the bait, on that, let me talk about the justices and Gorsuch being the face of this thing. Now, there's two ways that I'm thinking about this. One is super cynical, that's the bad news, and one is like a little more upbeat, which is sort of where you're coming from. The bad news would be that they're planning to do something much, much worse, and they got around their table and they were like, let's give the libs this one because we're going to crush them when it comes to a woman's right to choose, and they don't want to have a stain on the court of being a straight. It's like Chris Wallace on Fox News. Chris Wallace is like maybe a little bit more reasonable. He's like the lipstick on the pig, and then the pig is Hannity and Tucker and Laura and that whole crew. But the good part of that, maybe, and this is the one I would hope for, not the cynical conspiracy theory, is that the justices, who all have tremendous education, tremendous experience, even that fuckface Kavanaugh, and maybe they look around at what's going on in the world today and they say, let's do what our forebears did in this court, in this Hallett Hall, and let us find a way to rise ourselves above it. The left and the right have both turned judicial nominations into a nuclear arms race. And it is scary, and it is permanent, and it is very corrosive. It's leaking into the Justice Department. These institutions used to be like, you didn't even think about the politicization of the court or the Justice Department. Perhaps that was because we were more ignorant, but at the same time, these, both Justice and the Supreme Court, they enjoyed this rarefied image among the American public. When everything's political, when it's just Trump's people versus Obama's people, that credibility goes way down. And hopefully what these people are saying is, look, we have differences of opinion. We have different theories about how to do this job. We represent the will of presidents who are elected by the people. Some of us are on the right, some of us are on the left, but ultimately let's rise above the political silliness and try and diffuse this arms race before somebody gets killed, before the whole planet gets annihilated, and make decisions based on the case in front of us and doing the right thing. And in this case, from my perspective, 6 of them did the right thing.
Okay. So there's a lot we could go down the road. I want to be careful not to get incredibly divisive. I think you need to be careful when you talk about doing the right thing. I think it's important to understand that that's part of what the judges need to sit at home. If this is a moral compass issue, if that's what we want the court systems to be, when a judge is appointed, that their morals are applied to everyone else's, we need to be really careful about that. And that's a road I don't want to be on, because I don't agree with my neighbor's morals and they don't agree with mine oftentimes. Now, we go down this list of what was actually decided, and I'll say this. The idea, and it talks to where we are, the politicization of the courts is about power. Everything's about power, because power is how you get to the authoritarian rule that everyone wants, and doesn't talk about how we're going to force one party or the other our opinion and our thoughts onto you. And that's welcome to democracy. This is authoritarianism in its modern heyday, and it's all in this shroud of we're doing it for your good, the greater good, and power is the goal. And so the courts were just as corporations and people and groups figured out how powerful politicians were, then they started figuring how powerful judges were, and here we are. I think ultimately, though, it's pretty funny and indicative of a 2020 year where you're talking about how the court, the conservative-leaning court, is banded together to fool the generic left to make their buttholes less tight so that they can be ready to just be given it. I think that's hilarious. I don't think there's any part of the conservative right, even if you can call half these guys conservative, I don't even know if you would, that are coordinated. None of these guys are coordinated. I mean, Kavanaugh's, there's no way Kavanaugh's a part of this stuff. These people aren't that good at what they do to be coordinated to try to plan all that out. And I think a decent number of them are far above that. I think Gorsuch is one of them. Gorsuch is somebody who's above that. I don't think he would be a part of it, even if he was a president. I don't care. I think I watched his hearings. I've read a lot of his takes, and it's incredible. He has a line of thought and process that is very consistent, and that's what you want from a judge. You want to know what you're going to get, and it not be political. And I think we've gotten that here. And his decision against the ones of who appointed him, the fact that we think of the court as these guys are these people and these people are these people, we really shouldn't do that, and that's part of our problem, is that we need to unpoliticize the court if we possibly can. So I don't know. I appreciate the fact that the conspiracy theory is coming out, because normally it's me who's throwing it. But for me, I'm excited that here we are, because I know that it's not true. I know that everyone who was saying, Kavanaugh being, Trump, this is the end of the world. They're going to ruin all of the gay people's lives. They're going to ruin trans rights. They're going to do this and destroy it. And it's 6-3. It wasn't even close. It wasn't. So, it's just funny to me. It won't change their minds. This won't be a thing, but it will be something that I think ultimately does show that, hey, man, there is some reasonable commonality here. And here we are. So.
That's all the time we have for today. Thank you both for your thoughts. If you enjoyed our discussion, be sure to like and subscribe below, and we'd love to hear from you in the comments section. Thanks again, and we hope you join us for the next edition of Take Two, presented by LeftRightPolitics.com.